You know what?
Goddamn right they do.
Connor Hellebuyk, man.
Grew up about 15 minutes west of here, man. High school hockey player. You want to talk about a guy that's come on. Now, listen, this is a great chance for him to lose something that a lot of people have said about him. When crunch time comes, he doesn't get it done. Both he and the Winnipeg Jets, that's kind of been the MO, right?
Same with Matthews.
This is the opportunity. If there was one weakness, okay, without getting into the weeds, it's hard to argue. It's hard to argue Canada's forwards. It's hard to argue Canada's defense. Goaltending was the soft underbelly. It was. With all due respect to Binnington and Aidan Hill and Sam Montembeault, who I watch every night and is the second best goaltender on his team, mind you, Canada's soft underbelly is their goaltending.
Yep.
And if they don't win this tournament, it will be specifically because of their goaltending. Right now, goaltending in Canada aren't going hand in hand. You know,
Which is wild.
Think about the incredible run that they had. You know, Waugh, Brodeur, Carey Price at the Olympics. It wasn't fair in 2014.
Yeah.
It wasn't fair. Okay, but there's a little gap right now. You know, there isn't great Canadian goaltending right now, and I think if there's a reason that they don't win this tournament, it'll be because of goaltending.
Canada is going to have their children locked in ice caves in the Northern Territories until they come out as goaltenders after
Just
what happened.
strapped him to a goal, just shooting pucks at him, right? Woodward Sports chat thread, 40 Gumble. Neil and Sean, is there a point where ratings for a game like Canada-USA in this round robin end up driving expansion of this idea to a longer midseason break, shorter NHL regular season? 40 Gumble. It's called the Olympics. Like, that's going to be my stock response. So somebody asked earlier, and I lost the message for who it was from, but you know who you are. They asked, is this thing a one-off, or are they looking to continue this thing? I'll defer that to you.
I think that the question is, I think you're going to see the NHL coming back to more international ice federation type of events. But the one thing that I will say is, and I think people forget this, is when the Olympic Games are played, it's smack dab in the middle of the season. That's a problem. It is. It's a problem. And that's a problem that the NBA doesn't have. Now, in fairness to the NBA, those cats just got done with a grueling season. 82-game schedule plus whatever the playoffs may be. And then they have to turn around and go do that, a month later? A month and a half later, depending on when your season ended. So is it going to be in this model, so to speak? I'm not so sure it's going to be in this model, but I wouldn't be surprised if we didn't see a return of whether it be a Canada Cup type format or a World Cup of Hockey format. The question is, do you do this in September? What made Canada Cup and World Cup, go look it up, you guys, for the youngsters out there, what made that so successful for guys like me is you had that in September and it led right into a season. That was pretty cool. The issue at hand, Neil, is how do you take a huge break smack dab in the middle of the season? The Olympic Games are in February. You're taking a huge break.
Because that's the cost.
Yep.
That's the cost. Because look at this, Sean.
They're morons. How they didn't do something. Again, World Cup, Canada Cup, allow them to go to the Olympic Games. How they didn't do something for so many years is a disgrace.
They took the break in the season before.
It's a disgrace.
When they would have to go to Japan or wherever they had to go for the Olympics, they did it before.
Yeah.
So, you had it figured out.
There was Nagano. There was Salt Lake. Even Sochi, and it's a disgrace. And so for the huge, and I'm talking, hockey's number one, the P1. For the huge hockey fans, this has been a huge problem for many of us. I bitch about it forever. I don't get it. I don't get it. And especially, again, here's one of those things that people don't understand. Most of the guys on that team play just down the road in Plymouth, Michigan at USA Hockey Arena. Nobody goes. Nobody gets it. It's incredible. And you'll have these tournaments. I've seen these tournaments. I've broadcast these tournaments where you have all the names that Spenny just mentioned taking on the best U18 from Russia, the best U18 from Canada. It's phenomenal hockey. Nobody knows. It's incredible. It blows my mind.
It's always blown my mind, too. Busy 313 in the super chat. Lucas Raymond looks like a top 3 player on Sweden at 22 years old. That's insane. This kid's going to be a superstar. And Busy, next segment, I want to get into the Red Wings angle of this Four Nations, because I do think that in this city, it was big in this city, and we'll discuss that coming up. But I do want to kind of wrap this thing up. Jonesy, in order, it's Four Nations, World Baseball Classic, Olympic basketball. Well, Jonesy, in TV ratings, it's the exact opposite of that. The World Baseball Classic final last year got almost 33 million viewers in America.
It's nuts.
The Olympic basketball finals got almost 20 million, 19 and some change. This USA-Canada have 5 million and change. I suspect that'll probably come close to doubling on Saturday night if it's USA-Canada.
Here we go.
The Red Wings angle, Sean. I do think, because Dylan Larkin, I'll tell you this. That's Dylan Larkin's biggest moment in his hockey career. Nothing he's done with the Red Wings will match what he did on Saturday night. To me, if I were going to have in my basement, if I were going to have like a signed 16 by 20 photo, it would be Dylan Larkin up against the board celebrating the goal Saturday night. That would be it. That's the magic moment. Now, obviously, we reserve the right to change that.
Sure.
If he lifts the cup and does all that stuff. But to this moment, Sean, that is the biggest moment in his hockey career. We had the texter earlier talk about Lucas Raymond, who is playing for Sweden and does not look out of place. Not only does he not look out of place, he carries play at times. So with that being said, Sean, this was huge here in Detroit. You said it. You said it.
Isn't it amazing? Like last week, I remember people crying about the usage of Dylan Larkin. And it was funny when you were out, Mac and I were talking about it. I said, guys, this is great for Dylan Larkin. This is fantastic. I don't care if he gets 6-7 minutes a game. Okay. Now, what he did, let's put that on the side for just a second. But to be around those guys, to see from those guys, he was going to come back a better hockey player. Period. End of story. Being around those guys, seeing preparation, leadership, all of those things. Those were going to be great things. And you're right. And we talked about it with Lucas Raymond last week. I mean, look, you want a confidence boost? Do you know how many times this has happened? There's a famous story. Sorry to nerd out on you, but I'm going to tell you this story. There's a famous story. There's a young player by the name of Mario Lemieux. Maybe you heard of him, who came into the National Hockey League and was really doing quite well, okay? And he came into the dressing room at Canada Cup firing a dart. Firing a freaking dart, right? And the story goes that Wayne Gretzky kind of looked at him and goes, "What are you doing, man? Like what are you doing? Are you serious?" And legend has it, Mario threw the pack away and the game went like this. Those two were unstoppable that whole tournament, and Mario's career went through the roof at that point in time, and one of the greatest players to ever play, period of story. So it's not so much to me, Neil, how you look. Of course you want the guys to look good, right? You want to see Lucas Raymond stand out. You want to see Dylan Larkin have that moment. It's about what do they pick up and what do they bring back. That to me is immeasurable. When you're in a room with the greatest players from your country, okay, guys that have done things that you haven't been able to do yet, you can't put a price tag on that. You just can't do it.
Hockey question for you. How about this, by the way, everybody? You got to give hockey credit for this weekend. Taylor Frazee has a roster question about U.S. hockey, and I'll defer to you. You can't tell me that JT Miller and Trocheck are better centers than Larkin. Larkin also has more points than half the USA forwards this season.
You're asking the wrong guy about Vincent Trocheck. I love Vincent Trocheck. I think he's one of the most underrated players in the league, and if you heard the way they were pontificating about him, I think that feeling is held by a lot of people. Again, consider the source. I got a chance to call his games when he played junior hockey. Phenomenal, complete player. There's no doubt about that. And, I mean, to your point, I get it. I think when you're talking about the best and the best, there's something to be said for usage. There's something to be said about rolling lines and everything. And you know what? Dylan Larkin's play probably suggests that maybe, just maybe, they kind of finagle with the lines a little bit. Maybe, just maybe, they finagle with some of the minutes given out as well. Let's see how it is moving forward.
Because, Sean, for me, and you see this with, and look, like, is it fair to say Larkin's a young player? No. Like, when you get that 8-year contract, you cease being a young player, and now you're one of the top earners. Now you need to perform. He has continued to improve, though, as he's gone along. He has continued to improve. He's basically a point-a-game guy, which is what I asked for back, because I got some hot water before when I said, hey, like, do we need to pump the brakes on this Larkin stuff? Like, if I'm going 8 years at the time, 8.5 per or whatever that number was, I need a point a game. Like, and that's kind of a baseline. And he's delivered. So fair play to him. He's absolutely done it. Lucas Raymond as well. Is there a moment, Sean, where you think Raymond, and to a lesser degree Larkin, when they have these kinds of moments against this competition, does a light go on to them internally where they say, I can do this at this level. I am one of the best in the world at this.
Yeah, I think so. I hate to do it again, but there was a whole bunch of weeping and wailing and gnashing of teeth when a guy by the name of Steve Yzerman didn't make Canada Cup in '91. And it was, check all the boxes. This guy hates Steve Yzerman. That guy hates Steve Yzerman. Mike Keenan's the coach of the Blackhawks, so of course he was going to get rid of him and everything. Coincidentally, for what it's worth, Steve Yzerman got that chance at the 1998 Olympics in Nagano. It didn't end the way that Canada wanted, but did that make Steve Yzerman a more complete and better player? Well, the process was already going underway under Scotty Bowman. And by the way, Neil, you know what happened? They had just won a Stanley Cup and they mixed in another Stanley Cup. And you're all the better for this experience. And again, Mac and I were talking about this when we were in on Thursday. You just become a better player. You pick up things. You learn leadership. You learn how to conduct yourself. All of this is, you can't put a price tag on what this means moving forward, especially for a younger player. Because, Neil, to your point, give yourself a little bit of credit. How much ceiling is there for a guy who's 27, 28, right?
That's it, yeah.
And I don't know what the answer is, but there's probably not a lot of ceiling left there. However, for a guy that's 22, 23, it's immeasurable. You can't put a price tag on it.
Right. No, and I do think that there's a degree of that. But this was so big, I think, for both those guys. I think for the Red Wings team as well. And, as they kind of continue the push. And look, this kind of goes along the lines of what we were talking about earlier with, I say you got to get back into the Olympics and do the Olympics as a league because you need this all the time. Now, I will say this. With that being said, Sean, I think I do, and it kind of popped in my head as we were talking about it, I think I do understand where the NHL is going with this because I think what they're doing is just cutting out the middleman. And they have the control, right? You can cut your own kind of TV deals on it and everything like that. So this probably will be more of a moneymaker for them going forward. But my point is, you got to get everybody involved then. You got to get everybody involved.
100%. And I think that's the interesting thing about it is, okay, so pick your poison. Do you do this during the middle of the NHL season when the Olympics happen? Or do you go back to the September format?
I think you have to do it during the season because you got to ride the momentum right now. You have to.
Then if you're going to do it, then you have to do it the right way. You have to do it with the Canada Cup / World Cup of Hockey format. You have to. I mean,
correct.
This was an appetizer, but to me, do you know what's fun? I'm going to geek out. I like watching the Swiss play for their lives to knock somebody off.
Yeah,
like when Switzerland knocked off Canada in 2006, I'm sorry, that's great. Mm-hmm. That's fantastic.
That's Cinderella vibes.
Right.
Yeah.
Call, have a national holiday. Put Paulie DiPietro's face on a stamp. You know what I mean? Sorry. But you know what I'm saying? Those are the types of moments I like watching the Germans because you know what? Germany's really developing a lot of young players. They kind of looked at the way the United States did things with the US NTDP and said, we can do that. We can develop guys. I want Czechia there. I want Slovakia there. I want Slovenia there. And yes, I want Russia there. Think about, one of my buddies sent this to me last night. Think about Russia's goaltenders right now.
Bob and Vasilevsky. Yeah.
Thanks.
You would never score a goal.
Right? Thanks.
Yeah.
All right, well, Bob's got the night off. We're going to throw Andrei Vasilevsky at you. Okay, cool. Like, that's the kind of stuff. So, but, in the interest of being fair, I think it's bullshit. But in the interest of being fair, I understand what a lot of people say, because take a look at what is going on right now with the Florida Panthers. Florida would love nothing more than to go on another run. And their key component to winning a Stanley Cup is Matthew Tkachuk. Well, what if Matthew Tkachuk is seriously injured?
Yeah.
Okay? And you got to start. You're back at it less than a week from now. Okay? How does that hinder your chance to win a Stanley Cup again?